Mango, mango,
Mango, mango,
M says
M says
MB says
MB says
MN says
MN says
Silly snake, silly snakes.
Silly snake.
S says
S says
CE says
CE says
CI says
CI says
and CY says.
CY says.
And the superheroes E, I, and Y change the C to an S.
And the superheroes E, I, and Y change the C to an S.
Timer, timer,
Timer.
T says T.
T says
Washer, washer,
washer. Whoa.
W says what?
W says
WH says what?
WH says what?
Hound dog, hound dog.
Hound.
H says
H says
WH says
WH says
funny fan, funny fan.
funny fan.
F says
F says
PH says
PH says
GH at the end says
G at the end says
lemon, lemon, oh.
lemon, oh.
L says oh.
L says oh.
Popcorn, popcorn.
Popcorn.
P says
P says
garbage, garbage.
garbage.
G says g.
G says go.
GH says g.
G says go.
GU says g.
G says go.
Roar line, roar line. R says r. RH says r. WR says r. Vacuum, vacuum.
Vacuum.
V says v. Jump rope, jump rope.
Jumper.
J says j.
G says J.
DGE says j.
DD says J.
GE says j.
G says J.
GI says j.
GI says J.
And GY says j.
GY says J.
And the superheroes E, I, and Y change the G to a J.
And the superhero E, I, Y to the G to a J.
Basketball, basketball.
Basketball.
B says b.
B says B.
No.
No.
N says
N says
KN says
N
GN says
G says
MN says
MN says
PN says
PN says
Camera.
Camera.
C says
C says
K says
K says
CH says
CH says
CK says
CK says.
and the vowel before the CK is always short.
And the vowel of CK is always short.
Donut.
Donut.
D says D.
D says
The suffix ED says D.
The suffix ED says
TED says Ted.
T says Ted.
DED says dead.
D says dead.
Quackanut, quackanut, quack.
Quack.
QU says quack.
Q says quack.
KW says quack.
KW says quack.
Exit.
Exit.
XS. KS says CK says yodelay, yup. Y says y. Zipper, z. Z says z. S at the end says z. Angry goose. TH says TH with the line says shell. SH says CH says CI says SI says TI says and TION says Sean. Choo-choo train. CEH says TCH says ow. OW says ow. OU says ow. Awning. AW says aw. AU says aw. AL says aw. Or orangutan. OR says or. OAR says or. Aardvark. AR says R. Oil. OI says oi. OY says oi. Bird. ER says IR says and UR says Gong. NG says ING says ANG says ang. ONG says UNG says skunk.
skunk.
NK says unk.
NK says
INK says ink.
INK says ink.
ANK says ain't.
NK says ink.
ONK says onk.
NK says onk.
UNK says unk.
UNK says onk.
Cup.
Cup.
Double O says
Double O says
OULD says
OULD says
Ooh spoon.
spoon.
Double O says ooh.
Double O says
OUGH says ooh.
OUGH says ooh.
Now here are the long vowels coming at you.
Now here's the long vowel coming at you.
Long A, strong A.
Long and strong A.
A says A.
A says
A blink E says A.
Big E says A.
AE says A.
AE says A.
AI says A.
AI says A.
AY says A.
AY says A.
EA says A. EY says A.
EY says A.
AIGH says A.
AIGH says A.
EIGH says A.
EIGH says A.
Long E, strong E.
Long and strong E.
E says E.
E says E.
E blink E says E.
Big E says E.
EE says E.
E says E.
EA says E.
EA says E.
EY says E.
EY says E.
EI says E.
EI says E.
IE says E.
I says E.
Long I, strong I.
Long and strong I.
I says I.
I says
A
I.
blink E says I.
Big E says I.
IE says I.
IE says I.
IGH says I.
IGH says I.
EI says I.
EI says I.
IND says I'm.
EI says I.
Long O, strong O.
Long and strong O.
O says O.
O says
O
O.
blink E says O.
Big E says O.
OE says O.
OE says O.
OW says O.
OW says O.
OA says O.
OA says O.
OU says O.
OU says O.
OUGH says O.
OJ says O.
Long U, strong U.
Long and strong U.
U says U.
U says U.
U blink E says U.
Big E says U.
UE says U.
UE says U.
UI says U.
UI says U.
EU says U.
EU says U.
EW says ew.
EW says U.
Now here are the short vowels coming at you.
Now here's the short vowel coming at you.
Alligator. Short A says I.
A says I.
Elephant.
Elephant.
Short E says F.
Short E says F.
EA says F.
EA says F.
Igloo.
Igloo.
Short I says it.
Short I says it.
IND says in.
IND says in.
Octopus. Short O says
Short
ah.
O says ah.
AW says ah.
AW says ah.
AU says ah.
AU says ah.
AUGH says ah.
AUGH says ah.
OUGH says ah.
OUGH says ah.
Two dotted A says ah.
Two dotted A says ah.
LL says all.
LL says ah.
Umbrella. Up.
Umbrella.
Short U says
Short U says ah.
One dotted A says
One dotted A says ah.
One dotted E says
One dotted E says ah.
One dotted O says
One dotted O says ah.
And when a Y is at the end of a word, what does it look for?
More red letters.
And if it doesn't see more red letters, what does he say?
I hollow. I.
And if he does see more red letters, what does he say?
We are all together. We, E.
And the superheroes E, I, and Y hit the vowel before it and make it say its name.
And the superhero E-I-Y hit the mouth for it and make it say his name.
Give me an A.
A.
Give me an E.
E.
Give me an I.
I.
Give me an O.
O.
Give me a U.
You.
I love reading. How about you?
I love reading. How about you?
And you. And you. And you. And you. And you. Say what?
You. And you.
And you. And you. And you.